Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. I'm still on holiday, on vacation in New Zealand, so I'm in a more informal environment here filming. Please forgive the informality. Before we jump in, one quick piece of housekeeping. This weekend, I will be in Sydney, Australia. While I'm there, I will be doing subscriber meetups. So if you're in Sydney and you'd like to come to one of these, please email me at the address in the description below and let me know whether you'd like to come to the Saturday afternoon or the Sunday afternoon meetup. Today's video also has this year's second sponsored feature. I'm quite excited about this one and we'll cover it later in the video. But for now, we need to discuss the first update. The CIA has issued a new assessment suggesting that COVID-19 most likely originated from a laboratory in China, marking a shift from its earlier position that there was not enough evidence to determine the origin. In a statement released on Saturday, the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States noted, quote, "We assess that a research-related origin of the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than a natural origin based on available evidence," end quote. However, it emphasized that both scenarios, a lab-related origin and a natural emergence, remain plausible. For the past 4 years, the US intelligence community, which includes 18 agencies, has been investigating whether COVID-19 emerged naturally at a wet market in Wuhan or leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The CIA's conclusion aligns with similar findings from the FBI and the Department of Energy, though all maintain, quote, low confidence, end quote, in these judgments. The agency stated that it will continue to evaluate credible new intelligence and open source information that could alter its assessment. Of course, the reason there is low confidence is because China was slow to let international observers into Wuhan to investigate in the opening months of the pandemic. This new stance was publicized shortly after John Ratcliffe was sworn in as CIA director. In an interview with US media, Ratcliffe expressed his belief that intelligence and common sense suggested the virus likely originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz commented that individuals previously dismissed as conspiracy theorists for supporting the lab leak theory had been vindicated, adding, quote, "We can't prevent the next pandemic without understanding how the last one started," end quote. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, reaffirmed his long-standing view that COVID-19 likely originated in Wuhan labs. He commended the CIA's conclusion and called for accountability from China for the global pandemic. The Chinese embassy in Washington strongly denied the claims, describing the US report as baseless and politically motivated. Quote, "This report lacks credibility and continues the political manipulation and stigmatization of virus tracing," end quote, the embassy said in a statement. The revised assessment emerged shortly after President Trump had his first conversation with Chinese leader Xi Jinping since 2021. The US-China relationship is already in a very rocky place as the two powers wrestle for geopolitical dominance. This new report suggests that culpability for a global pandemic, the millions dead, and its $100 trillion plus in damage could be one of the areas of conflict between the US and China going forward. Next up, and speaking of geopolitical tensions, in recent days, the Philippines is ramping up its efforts to challenge China's actions in the South China Sea. Philippines Justice Minister Jesus Crispin Rumula confirmed that Manila is close to selecting an international venue to file a second arbitration case against Beijing. This new case focuses on environmental damage, including the alleged destruction of coral reefs and harvesting of giant clams in the Philippines' Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. This follows the 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which invalidated China's sweeping claims in the area, a ruling which Beijing strongly rejects. Adding to this, late last week, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio reinforced Washington's commitment to Manila. In a call with the Philippine Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo, Rubio condemned Beijing's actions as threats to regional peace and emphasized the US, quote, ironclad, end quote, obligations under the Mutual Defense Treaty. The discussion also highlighted plans to deepen security cooperation and expand economic ties. Meanwhile, a senior Philippine official disclosed that the US military has relocated its Typhoon, not to be confused with Typhoon, missile launchers within the Philippines. These launchers, capable of firing long-range and multi-purpose missiles, have been moved from Laoang Airfield to an undisclosed location on Luzon. The redeployment reportedly aims to test the system's mobility and responsiveness. This move has drawn sharp criticism from Beijing, with Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning describing the deployment as irresponsible and an incitement of geopolitical tensions. As we have discussed in previous episodes, the Typhoon missile system has caused deep concern in Beijing due to its ability to hit targets deep within China, as well as Beijing's current inability to effectively respond to them. China, for its part, continues to assert its claims over the South China Sea and rejects what it calls external interference. It has called on the Philippines to reverse its military cooperation with the US, warning of potential regional instability. Next up, we discuss one of China's biggest issues with its economy, but first we move to today's sponsored feature. Sponsored features are limited to just approximately 2 per month. This is to ensure that the channel is financially sustainable while still being primarily supported by subscribers. If you'd like to know how I work with sponsors and what my criteria are, this is in the description below. Congratulations to those who did their due diligence on the first sponsor of the year 2 weeks ago, Giant Mining. Since that sponsored feature, the price is up 45%. The world is going through unprecedented changes. As the US and China prepare for a prolonged Cold War, supply chains are seeing once-in-a-lifetime shifts, with Washington bringing commodities production back home. In times of great change, savvy investors are always looking for the opportunities this change presents. And today's video sponsor, American Tungsten, provides such an opportunity. Tungsten's unique characteristics make it indispensable in modern industrial, technological, and defense applications. Tungsten is used in advanced composite armors for military vehicles due to its ability to absorb and dissipate kinetic energy. However, there is no producing mines of this very critical and crucial metal on US soil. It is 100% imported from other countries. Indeed, the US imports 27% of its supply of this metal from China. The US Department of Energy classifies tungsten as a critical material, recognizing its strategic importance to national security, clean energy, and high-tech industries. In a geopolitical crisis, a sudden supply disruption could cripple some US industries, including defense contractors. Washington knows this and is moving to change the status quo, meaning opportunities for American-based tungsten companies. American Tungsten seeks to become the first tungsten producer on US soil. American Tungsten is advancing a significant North American past-producing mine in a region with minimal environmental and regulatory barriers compared to overseas competitors. The company's flagship asset used to be the 5th largest operational tungsten mine in the USA. The company plans to put it back into production. Right now, its market cap is only $12 million, all while it could have a huge first-mover advantage, with a clear path to start production. The company will soon begin discussions to secure key strategic partnerships and non-dilutive financing with the US Department of Defense and US Department of Energy. Peer companies are trading at market caps exceeding $25 million. American Tungsten, in contrast, is just beginning its journey. There are plenty of reasons to be bullish on American Tungsten. This is a speculation, risk, but also potential reward, and savvy investors looking to take advantage of the shifting geopolitical landscape should consider doing their due diligence on American Tungsten. We remember that all investment involves risk. This sponsored feature is not individual investment advice. Always do your own due diligence and speak to an investment professional before making any investment decision. A big thank you to American Tungsten for sponsoring this episode of China Update. We now return to regular content. As China prepares for a potential tariff war with the United States, its leaders are signaling a significant departure from decades-old economic strategies. Traditionally, when faced with economic challenges, the government relied on cheap loans and subsidies to bolster manufacturing, infrastructure, and housing. This is all very familiar to regular China Update viewers. However, this approach, as many know, is no longer viable. Many regions are now saturated with roads, railways, and housing developments, while global demand for Chinese exports face headwinds amid rising protectionism. The clear path forward, economists suggest, and Beijing policymakers are increasingly in agreement on lies in boosting domestic consumption. Over the past 4 decades, despite GDP per capita growing tenfold, Chinese households remain cautious spenders. Saving consistently accounts for about a third of household income, and consumption makes up only 45% of GDP, far below the 60 to 80% seen in most OECD countries. Several factors contribute to this frugality. 1. Weak social safety nets. China's transition to a market economy left many citizens vulnerable to economic shocks. Limited pensions, uneven state support, and high healthcare costs discourage spending as individuals prioritize financial security over discretionary expenses. 2. Cultural legacy. The one-child policy, in place for decades, has fostered a culture of saving, with fewer children to provide financial support in old age. The economic uncertainties during the COVID-19 pandemic further entrenched this behavior, with 2/3 of citizens planning to save more in the face of job market volatility and falling property values. 3. Policy constraints. Wage growth has been constrained by policies that favor businesses over workers, and low interest rates on savings make household income growth sluggish. Furthermore, consumer debt, once encouraged by rising property values, has been reined in as many households now prioritize paying down existing loans. And, in the same vein, 4, this is not a matter of frugality, but a structural reality. As we have explored in previous episodes, due to Beijing's control of the banking system, it has systemically, for years, decades, transferred wealth from households into businesses and local government. This has caused households to structurally enjoy a much lower share of overall income than peers in other countries of similar levels of development and higher. If households earn less overall, they have less money to spend, whether they're frugal or not. However, now Beijing, recognizing the limits of infrastructure-driven growth, have begun prioritizing consumption. The Central Economic Work Conference for 2025 identified, quote, lifting consumption vigorously, end quote, as a top priority. Measures include state subsidies, wage increases, and social spending. These efforts signal a shift in strategy, but economists caution that short-term fixes like subsidies may only accelerate planned purchases rather than stimulate sustained spending. China's consumption patterns are also shifting. Luxury brands like Porsche and Gucci, once synonymous with the country's rising affluence, have seen slower sales. Analysts attribute this to leader Xi Jinping's crackdown on ostentatious displays of wealth and a pivot toward more practical spending. Increasingly, consumers are embracing local, budget-friendly brands and expenses over high-end goods. For instance, Luckin Coffee has gained market share by offering affordable alternatives to Starbucks, and demand for outdoor sports equipment and travel has risen. These trends highlight a growing preference for value and experiences, reflecting the evolving priorities of China's middle class. A key factor tying consumption to economic recovery is the real estate market too, where much of household wealth is concentrated. With property prices stagnant, consumer spending remains subdued. Beyond this, policymakers face structural hurdles. Expanding benefits and redistributing income through tax reforms could increase disposable income and reduce inequality. This is difficult to get past politically, however. Granting equal access to public services for the 300 million rural migrants living in cities could unleash significant economic potential. This too, as we have explored in the past, is very politically difficult and frankly unpopular with China's powerful urban middle class, who do not want to share their benefits with rural workforces. Moving up the value chain in industries like semiconductors and artificial intelligence could raise incomes, but this long-term strategy requires substantial investment and time. While boosting consumption offers a pathway to stable growth, it is not without risks. Increasing social spending could exacerbate government debt, which is already at a historic high, and policymakers remain wary of relying on short-term consumption fixes. General Secretary Xi Jinping and his team appear more focused on transforming China into a high-tech superpower capable of rivaling the United States. It is unclear whether they will be successful, however. The prevailing sentiment in Beijing underscores the belief that sustainable growth comes not from immediate consumption, but from structural adjustments that position China as a leader in innovation. Achieving this balance between stimulating domestic demand and pursuing long-term technological dominance, and whether this is even possible, will determine China's economic trajectory in the coming years. Okay, That is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Monday, and I will see you all tomorrow.